Hello, and welcome back to MoJo JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the one and only Powerpuff Girls / JoJo's Bizarre Adventure recap and discussion podcast. I'm Raven.
And I'm Alison.
So today's episodes we're going to be discussing are The Emperor and the Hanged Man Part 2 and The Empress. But before we get into the episode, I'd just like to ask that if you haven't already followed or subscribed to the podcast, to do that. And if you've been enjoying the show, leave us a review so we can get out there to more people. The more 5-star, 4-star reviews we get, the more likely people will see us and can climb those charts and maybe get monetized.
And if you leave a review, we might read it on the show.
Yeah.
And we have another podcast, What We Pod in the Shadows, where we are discussing what we do in the shadows. We just finished season 1 and we've already discussed season 6. So we're kind of going back to the beginning and rewatching.
Yeah, it's one of our favorite shows, and it's been fun to do a rewatch because we haven't rewatched any of it since it first aired. So I think I'm going to start talking about The Emperor and the Hanged Man Part 2. Polar says for a tough guy, Avdol was easy to finish off. He gloats about killing him, and Polnareff angrily approaches him. Cockyween begs him to fall back, that was why Avdol had come looking for him, so he wasn't fighting their enemy alone. How can they fight them when they don't know what their stands can do? Polhorse antagonizes Polnareff by calling him Pol, but Cockyween begs him to walk back towards him, that a nearby vehicle is their getaway. It seems to calm him until he's taunted by Centerfold himself. Centerfold said that it's Polnareff's fault Avdol died, and he owes Avdol. Polnareff is further antagonized and gets closer to Centerfold's reflection. Centerfold says it would be good if Polnareff dies so that he can be reunited with Avdol and his sister. Centerfold says he'll tell Polnareff exactly how he killed his sister. They had a ball together. Cockyween begs him not to attack, but that's just what Centerfold wants. Polnareff breaks the mirror. Centerfold says he's in the mirror where Polnareff's stand can't go, and we see a handprint on Polnareff's neck, but no hand in the real world. Centerfold basically says to Holhorse to sick his Emperor on Polnareff. Holhorse fires on Polnareff, but Cockyween unleashes Emerald Splash, saving Polnareff's life. Cockyween drives himself up in a truck and pulls Polnareff in out of the Emperor's range. Holhorse decides not to go after them, but Centerfold is already on their tail. Polnareff apologizes to Cockyween, saying he didn't think he'd care whether he lived or died, so long as he could avenge his sister, but that he understands now. He says Avdol's sacrifice will not be for naught. Cockyween elbows him in the face and says that that's his proof that they've made up. Polnareff can only say merci, Cockyween. Polnareff is sure he'd hit Centerfold, but he didn't, that it's like he wasn't even there. Then he says, how are we going to get into a mirror world? Cockyween says that's bullshit and that there's no mirror world, and that the fact that there isn't is what's going to help them with this mystery. Just then, Polnareff spots Hanged Man in the reflection from the chrome of the steering wheel. Cockyween slams on the brakes and they crash, landing upside down. Both survive, but Polnareff hacks up more chrome from the bumper of the truck. They book it behind some rocks in the desert. Polnareff says that Hangman works by jumping from one reflection to another, and that's how he followed them from town, bouncing from mirrored surface to mirrored surface. Cockyween says that means that the stand is light itself. Polnareff says that he saw him in the car's bumper and that they need to get rid of anything shiny to avoid the Hanged Man. Then this kid shows up and tries to help him, but they see Hanged Man in the kid's eye. They beg the kid not to look at them, but he does because they're hurt and he wants to help. Centerfold taunts him by saying that they'll have to gouge out the kid's eyes to get rid of him. Hangman goes to stab Polnareff. Polnareff starts laughing and says that if you're going to get revenge, you have to give a good speech first. Then he kicks sand in the kid's eye. Polnareff says that the stand moves at the speed of light, and that he knew if he could get the kid to close his eyes, that the stand would have to bounce back to his eye, because there would be nowhere else to move. Polnareff says as long as he can track Hangman's trajectory, he can slice him like butter. Then we hear a cry of pain from Centerfold, and Polnareff and Cockyween book it in that direction to confront Centerfold himself, because Polnareff had gotten him as he moved from the kid's eye to his eye. I don't know if I explained that well. They race up some steps and find a guy with a unibrow panting and bleeding. Polnareff gives a speech about how he can cut Centerfold now that he knows how his stand works, but Cockyween realizes the guy doesn't have two right hands. Polnareff gets stabbed in the back by a knife. Kakyoin pulls a knife out of his back, and the real Centerfold reveals himself and says he hurt the other guy to use him as a decoy. Kakyoin tries to Emerald Splash Centerfold, but Centerfold interrupts him by calling people over, saying that Polnareff and Kakyoin have a ton of money that they plan to share. Polnareff and Kakyoin are surrounded and can no longer guess Stan's trajectory with so many people around them. Centerfold mocks them, saying that of course he knows how to counter his weakness, but also that he has none. Polnareff gets cut the hell up from all the reflections. Centerfold mocks Polnareff for sacrificing his youth to go after him and says that Polnareff will die here and that he, Centerfold, will live a life surrounded by young, beautiful women and pleasure. He says Polnareff's sister is really good at sobbing, which infuriates Polnareff. Centerfold bids them farewell, but Kakyoin says that won't do and gives a vengeance speech. He then tosses up a shiny gold coin into the air and says whoever grabs it can have it. As the coin lands on the ground and people start reaching for it, they kick sand in their eyes so the reflection is redirected to the coin. Polnareff slices Hangman the hell up with Silver Chariot as Hangman bounces to the new reflective surface. Centerfold cries out in pain. He tries to open a gate ahead of him, and Polnareff says Centerfold is the one who's really good at sobbing. He says that Centerfold will go to hell, but he can't rely on the Guardians of Hell to mess him up, so he's going to make a pincushion of Centerfold himself. Centerfold flies through the air as he's cut and lands upside down in the Hanged Man card position. Polnareff tells him to rot in hell, and Kakyoin says the Hanged Man was rotten to the core. Whole Horse finally catches up to Polnareff and Kakyoin. He whips out the Emperor, but Kakyoin and Polnareff ignore him. He smashes some glass and calls on Centerfold, who doesn't answer. Polnareff says Centerfold is busy serving his sentence in hell, which Whole Horse says is bullshit because even he's afraid of fighting Centerfold. Polnareff says Whole Horse can find his corpse over yonder, and Whole Horse books it in the other direction. Jotaro and Joseph finally arrive on the scene, and Jotaro punches Whole Horse out. Joseph says they found Avdol and gave him a proper funeral. Polnareff goes to kill Whole Horse, but is tackled by Whole Horse's little girlfriend from earlier, Nana. She tells Whole Horse to get out of there and that she'll always protect him. Polnareff struggles to get Nana off of him, but Whole Horse gets on a horse and says he's only running away because he loves her forever and ever. Polnareff gets up and Nana clings to his leg and hurts herself as she is dragged across the ground. Joseph says to forget Whole Horse, he doesn't want to fight them anymore. Joseph bandages Nana's arm, but a drop of her blood lands on an unsuspecting Joseph's arm. Polnareff gives a speech about not going alone or they're playing into their enemy's hands. As they go to leave, Nana watches them. Joseph touches the spot where the blood hit him, which is now a sore or almost a pimple. It makes a silly noise. To be continued.
Like, at one point, Whole Horse kind of reveals that he can only shoot within a certain range. Like, his bullet wouldn't have enough power after a certain distance.
Yeah.
And, like, Centerfold is, like, hella ugly. It's like, he almost looks like he's blind. Like, his eyes are just white.
Yeah, he's creepy and strange looking, and much like his mother in Yaba, he looks like he's drawn in a completely different art style.
But even sort of, I feel like, different from her, even.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's pretty hideous.
He doesn't really look like, Hoggle or whatever, like she does.
When they get him, like, Silver Chariot kind of like, it looks like it stabbed him, like, through the tongue before he ends up in the hangman's pose. I'm not really sure how the Nana chick caught up with them. I feel like that was almost like a whole other different area, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it felt very like a Deus Ex Machina plot device to have her show up at that time so the Horse could get away. Just like, hey, you remember her? Well, guess what?
I mean, they said they kind of did a funeral for Avdol, but I don't know. I know that they did kind of like show some scenes where they were sad or crying about him, but I don't know. He was in it for like 10 episodes, so I'm like,
yeah.
It was kind of shocking how he was killed, like kind of the first one in their group, like main character to die. And at first it seemed like they were just gonna like drive away. I mean, I know they were like in peril, like you can't just like bury somebody, but
yeah. I think I've said before, like, Araki isn't very, like, precious with his character, so he sort of reminds me of, like, a Stephen King in that way. But it would have been nice to, like, maybe, actually show the funeral.
Or like maybe once this part is over, like they could go visit where they buried him or something before they move on.
Yeah. We actually get to see them, like, pay their respects and stuff.
And then I'm not sure, like does Gramps know Abdal's family? Is he gonna like contact them or something? They're just kind of going around the world, and then he's just buried where they're at currently. But I'm just assuming there's other people that care about him.
I guess really the only trivia I have, and I guess, well, you kind of don't. Well, I already said what her name was, but Nana is named after the band that does the song 99 Red Balloons, or you might also know it as 99 Luftballons.
So is that the name of the group?
Yeah.
It's Nana?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I don't remember that. Or like what the name of the group was.
Yeah, they're like a German band.
Okay, the next episode was the Empress. Unyaba mourns her son, and holes pop out on her face and hands, which she bleeds from. She thinks they must have done something underhanded to kill her son. She freaks out and promises vengeance and a slow death for the Joestar group. Supposedly that all those holes is like she's suffering like he did, but he didn't have like holes poked in him, so I'm not sure what that's about. He was more like slashed, if anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they did poke him, seemed like through the tongue, but the holes were just sort of very perfectly placed. And I don't know, it was weird. They head to another city in India, the sacred city of Varanasi, by bus. I'm not sure if I said that right or not. Polnareff talks Nana's ear off, so I'm not sure, like, why she would have went with them, or, I don't, like, are they holding her hostage? Like, I don't get it. Because she's like kind of on the other side.
Yeah, that part didn't really make sense to me either.
The Ganges River runs through the city, and it is a microcosm for life from birth until death. Like, Nana doesn't really talk a whole lot, and it's like Polnareff's almost like trying to make a case for himself that she should date him. Like, I don't know. Maybe she should just be single after dating a creep like Whole Horse.
Yeah.
Seems like he's kind of a womanizer.
Yeah, like have some time to herself to think and reflect. Like, come on.
So the little growth on Gramps' arm has grown bigger and looks like it has a face, and it tries to eat a fly. Nana stares at it. So she just looks like she barely talks, and then she's like looks very bored or uninterested the whole time, like the way her eyes are. Gramps shows the group, I guess his growth, and calls it a bug bite, and Polnareff says it has a face. They deem it infected, so he is going to seek medical treatment. Nana sticks out her tongue, and she has a similar small growth on her tongue that has a mouth and makes a whiny noise. Or like a ha. Like, the doctor wants to cut it open and drain it. Like, Gramps is squeamish about it and closes his eyes. When he dares to look, the doctor has been stabbed in the eye with the scalpel, and the growth starts talking. It has eyes now, and it says it is the Empress. Gramps tries to stab it, but it stops it with its teeth, turns the scalpel around, and chops off Gramps' mechanical pinky. Gramps' stand is basically useless for fighting off a stand growing on his own arm. The growth vomits, and Gramps tries to leave when the nurse comes in and sees the apparently dead doctor and freaks out. I just said apparently because half the time somebody seems to be dead in this show, and like they'll have all this blood loss, and then they're like, she will recover, or they will recover.
Yeah.
Gramps said he didn't do it, but the growth says exactly who he is and that he likes hot nurses. The nurse runs off yelling murderer. The police arrive and Gramps tries to hide, but he can't go back to the hotel because the growth told the nurse where he was staying. The growth now has arms and grabs a bar and yells for the police. Gramps tries some Haman overdrive action on it, but it doesn't work because it's part of his own body. He sicks Hermit Purple's purple thorns on it and begins crushing it. The cop shoots, and the growth lets go of the bar, and Gramps books it with a cloth over the growth. I don't know where he got the dirty cloth from.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure about that either. So all of a sudden, he just finds one.
Polnareff continues with trying to talk Nana into dating him instead of Whole Horse. I mean, we may never see Whole Horse again anyway. Like, I don't know. She has looked as though she has checked out and has no interest in him. Gramps has been run in the opposite direction of the hotel. He runs by them in the crowd, but Nana distracts Polnareff by pointing out a cheap hotel. Produce starts falling out of the cloth over Empress and then a chicken's head. Empress had grabbed food as they went through the market and grown bigger. When Gramps lifts the cloth, Empress punches him and now is a head and torso growing from his arm. He tries to use Hermit Purple's thorny vines again to hold Empress, but she bites him. He starts running again. She says she could easily kill him now, and she starts punching him, and he tries to hold her at bay with his mechanical hand. He holds Empress down with the mechanical hand and runs back towards Polnareff, but Nana again distracts Polnareff by saying she loves him. Gramps runs through empty alleyways and dunks Empress in a barrel of black stuff. She pops up with a nail and tries to go for his neck after him trying to suffocate her fails. I'm not sure some of this stuff are like real sentences, but okay. He can barely keep her at bay when the coal tar he dumped her in hardens and she can't move. Apparently, Hermit Purple made a map out of incense ashes. Like when I guess they fell at one point and were rolling on the ground, and it made a map of like the alleyways out of the ashes and directed him towards the barrel of tar. He uses Hermit Purple's vines to snap off the growth and then goes to look for the stand user. Polnareff tries to kiss Nana when she vomits, and then an older, ugly lady's body erupts out of her. She had disguised herself in a younger woman's body. Polnareff is horrified. Jotaro and Kakyoin are pissed they can't stay in a hotel. Gramps gets them a car and tells Polnareff to drive, but he is still in shock. A car that looks to be empty starts to follow them. And that was the end of the episode. I don't know, the stuff with Nana is kind of confusing. I'm just not sure. Like, we didn't really learn a whole lot about her, like some of the other stand users that were after them. Usually they kind of like monologue, and
Yeah.
she didn't really do that. She didn't really talk a whole lot. And then I was just wondering, like, well, I don't know how this lady disguised herself as Nana. Was the first Nana that we saw riding on the elephant with Whole Horse, was that the same lady, or did she see the opportunity to disguise herself as Nana to like infiltrate their group? But I'm not sure if we'll ever find that out or anything.
Yeah.
And then it just doesn't seem like that would be, it would be likely that she's been the stand user, because I would think, like, why would he romance her and then kind of like drop her off in the desert if she was part of a group of 3 that was supposed to be going after the Joestar group?
Yeah. I almost think maybe the reason we didn't get a whole spiel about, like, her whole thing is because normally, like, Avdol would be like, oh shit, we're dealing with this stand user? And so then he'd be like, this is such and such, they have this stand, and of course we don't get that because he is no longer with us.
Okay, because he has all the knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. He didn't really know about the ape, though, did he?
Yeah, no, he didn't really seem like he had a lot of knowledge about forever and strength.
He knows some of them, but I mean, I guess I can see that, but even still, usually, like, when they're about to kind of like, I mean, I know she was trying to stay in disguise, but usually there's some sort of monologue. So in a way, this was kind of like a different episode than some of the ones that we had seen before.
Yeah. It was like a Joseph solo episode, pretty much.
Yeah. I wasn't really sure how he was gonna get that thing off of his arm, and it just kept seeming to get like stronger and stronger. I'm not sure why these stand users are wanting to work for Dio, and this stuff's not really working super well out for most of them so far.
I know the one guy, the rubber soul dude who had yellow temperance, he said like Dio like promised him like $100 million or something, so maybe some of them are in it for the money and some of them just like to kill. I don't know.
I just kind of question whether Dio would have even given him the money or even has that much.
Yeah, I have no idea where he'd get that from. He was underwater for like almost 100 years.
And then was that if he killed the one of them or the whole group? Like, how is that supposed to work?
Yeah. I guess I'll talk a little bit about some of the meanings of the Empress card. I forgot to write down my notes from the booklet with my tarot cards, so I'm just kind of peeking at this, the Labyrinthos website. I use that sometimes if I need like extra meanings for my tarot cards. So the Empress can represent it's basically the counterpart of the Emperor. So, that one is like masculine energy or masculine person. So, femininity, feminine person can represent sensuality, fertility, nurturing, creativity, beauty, abundance, and nature. She kind of looks like almost a Mother Earth type character. Sometimes in readings, if you get the Empress, it could represent a potential pregnancy with the fertility there. It says here, the Empress shows us how deeply we are embedded to our femininity. Femininity could be associated with fertility, expression, creativity, nurturing, among other aspects. It therefore calls you to connect with beauty and bring happiness to your life. Understand yourself and get in touch with your sensuality so that you can attract life circumstances to bring happiness and joy. She is a signal to be kind to yourself, to take care of yourself. But also, the birth thing can be symbolic, too. Be like the birth of a new idea or project. And basically, it's just, good fortune all around. I hope I explained that well. My theory, again, is that maybe the stand users Dio is sending after them represent, possibly the reversed meanings of the tarot. Because some of them seem like the opposite of what the card should be. So I don't normally read the reversed meanings. For this one, it would be insecurity, overbearing, negligence, smothering, lack of growth, lack of progress.
Or yeah, I guess if she represents life, it would be death.
Yeah.
I mean, she kind of, I know it's her stand is the Empress, but Nana was kind of what she was disguised as anyway. It was using her beautiful outside to kind of attract men. And then that thing that her stand does, which is become a growth. I don't know what the end game would have been.
Yeah.
If it would have grown until it could kill Gramps or ultimately maybe ate Gramps' body, possibly. I don't know. But I mean, a growth, he was growing a new being on his body. So it's kind of being pregnant in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
That one sort of makes sense for this one. I'm not really. Some of the other ones, I'm this doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
Or it just maybe sounded like a cool name, like
Hierophant for Cockeween or the Emperor for Whole Horse. Because his stand is just gun that he can control the bullet.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
It's gonna curve the bullet.
So it kind of looked at the end there like they were being followed, but to me the car looked empty. It looked like it was following them, like the car's alive, or maybe that's the stand or something, but that's what I kind of saw.
Yeah. I don't super remember the next episode very well, so I can't quite remember what the deal is with that, and it's probably for the best so I don't spoil it accidentally.
It did seem like Gramps' stand did seem kind of useless at first, but I'm not sure why he didn't almost immediately bring out the vines.
Yeah.
Those were kind of helpful if you can control that. I don't know. And then you had said that we do see Anne again.
Yeah, I thought on the next on it shown her, and I remembered that.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm they've kind of went a couple different places, so I'm not sure how I know sometimes she stows a ride or whatever, but
she's very stealthy.
I'm not sure how she's still with them after all that.
Yeah.
Or why, because she was with them long enough, why one of these stand users hasn't held her hostage or something, which could be coming up, but I would think they would try to use her in some way or grab her or something.
perhaps.
I mean, I guess it was satisfying to see Centerfold get dead because
Yeah, absolute creeper.
Yeah, he had plans to keep creeping on young girls, and it sounds like he's a rapist. So
Yeah.
even if he wasn't a stand user trying to kill them, he definitely needed to be off the streets.
Yes.
The next 2 episodes are Wheel of Fortune and Justice Part 1.
Yeah. So stay tuned for us to talk about that. And, if you want to not be spoiled by us, maybe watch those first before we talk about it. I think we are wrapping things up. So I'm just going to ask again that if you haven't already, to hit all those buttons, depending on where you're listening, follow, subscribe, like, comment, leave us a review, etc. That would be really helpful for us for growing the podcast.
Share with your friends, and don't forget to check out our other podcast, What We Pod in the Shadows.
Absolutely. So until next time, I'll be the roundabout. Goodbye.
Goodbye.